And here now is our top story. The Singapore government has announced what are described as the most significant measures to date to cool the property market. Apart from residential property, private and public, it is also, for the first time, introducing a seller's stamp duty on industrial property. Most of the measures take effect tomorrow.
This is the seventh round of property cooling measures introduced since 2009. Authorities said previous measures helped to dampen speculative buying, but demand for residential property remained, with prices continuing to rise.
I would say prices are running away from the fundamentals. Had we not intervened previously, I think we would be in serious trouble now. We'd be in a real bubble now. But what we are seeing is just a continued gradual rise in prices. And we don't intend that to continue because it'll only mean that you get a more serious fall further down the road.
So the government is moving in two directions. First, introducing temporary cyclical measures, and two, long-term structural reforms. Temporary measures include raising the additional buyer's stamp duty by 5 to 7 percentage points across the board. The tax will be imposed on permanent residents buying their first property and Singaporeans buying their second. The loan-to-value limits granted by banks to those with at least one outstanding loan will also be tightened. For example, those getting a second housing loan will have their loan-to-value limits lowered to 50 or 30%, depending on the loan tenure or borrower's age. The minimum cash down payment for individuals applying for a second or subsequent housing loan will also be raised from 10 to 25%. These measures will not affect Singaporeans buying their first home. Long-term structural reforms include tightening the eligibility loans to buy HDB flats. For the first time, there will be a cap of up to 30% of the borrower's monthly income for bank loans. Similarly, this cap will be lowered from 40 to 35% for loans granted by the HDB. And to target the increasing number of permanent residents buying property in Singapore, there will be an owner occupation requirement for those who buy resale public flats. For example, PRs who own an HDB flat will not be allowed to sublet the entire flat. The National Development Minister explained that's because the privilege of buying subsidised flats should be kept for owner occupation. Sweeping reforms also for executive condominiums or ECs to ensure they serve as an affordable housing option for middle-income Singaporean families. The move follows a recent trend by developers building super-sized ECs going for millions of dollars. Measures to address this include capping the maximum strata floor area of new EC units at 160 square meters, and ensuring that sales of new dual EC units be restricted to multi-generational families.
As hitherto, the EC's units size and pricing have been quite moderate and very much in keeping with what the market think the target buyers can afford. But when they start exceeding 200 square meters, and charging, a couple of $1 million, one should legitimately ask, how can a 12,000 income group family afford such a unit? So I think the best way to do so is what we have included in this package, which is once you limit the size of the EC size that developers can build, that automatically will bring the price down.
Finance Minister Tharman Shanmugaratnam said authorities are not trying to engineer a market crash. These measures are intended to calm the market down, so some of the temporary cyclical measures will be reviewed once things turn around.
Well, analysts are calling the latest announcement the tsunami of property cooling measures. This is because they affect private and public housing, executive condominiums and industrial properties. Some say the additional stamp duty will hit investors wanting to own a second or subsequent property.
A drastic move will have a downward spiral effect, loss of confidence in the market, and the worry will be here is, will the current property prices go under such that people who bought in recent times will their property be a negative asset moving forward? And more pertinent as far as public housing here is the restrictions on PR. There has been a lot of concerns and things that people have raised about PR being able to benefit out of holding on to the public housing while investing. These measures will, in a way, increase the supply of public housing, and overall this will help the public housing to be further moderated.
And some observers say the measures on industrial property do not come as a surprise.
I think the measures are quite timely. In fact, it could have actually come much earlier on, because if you notice, industrial prices have actually increased by about average 25% per annum since 2010. And if you look at last year, the full year price estimate, capital values have actually increased by more than 30%. So all in all, the government could have actually reacted earlier on, perhaps maybe 12 months early rather than now, but I think never too late. I think that will have a huge impact on the pace of price movement moving forward. I would expect industrial price movement this year to be a bit more moderated to a single-digit increase, if any.